you had that the Board of Supervisors was trying to take money from you.
Yes, that's what it does say. And the
Now,
other thing is, the documents online say you're cutting the school division $200,000.
That's proposed by the staff. As
Right,
staff
and it was
recommended.
proposed without a discussion with the school board.
That's staff's recommendation.
Secondly, you asked about the raises. With the money that's all coming from the state, we would be able to fully fund the 5% now without asking for any additional funding from the county. And it's concerning me because we could actually do a little bit more and cover their losses, plus give them their full, probably a 6% with the money that we have. And that's all state money.
What happens to the county money?
I can't hear you, I'm sorry.
What happens to the county money? I thought we gave you $11 million, or we said we were you gave us last year $11,566,000.
That's correct.
What's that being spent on?
The $11,500,000 still is in the budget. That's no additional request. The $66,000 was for the buses.
Okay. All right. So what the board is asking is that without going with the recommendations of staff of $200,000, would the school board, and I was asking the chairman, if the school board would be able to meet with the Board of Supervisors within the next week before our next meeting on the 22nd, because we're going to have to be approving this budget shortly, to discuss the issues that have been raised tonight with this board. Now, the $200,000 is still on the table as far as proposal from staff as a recommendation to cut.
Right.
But this board is trying to say, is it going to be something else, something lesser, or what have you?
Well,
how can we work it out?
We would greatly appreciate, because I know our teachers, and I went back and did a history of where we've been and where we've come from and all the cuts that not only we have taken, but across the county. And we are cognizant of that, but there's been a lot of improvements in the school system. Our teachers have worked, not only our teachers, our custodians, our teacher assistants, bus drivers, everybody's worked extremely hard to improve the school division, to get it fully accredited. Have done it with less, done it with a whole lot less, and we've asked a lot more of them. And I think that the issue is, this is money that's flow-down money. We took the cuts early. We helped when we needed to, and we did our jobs up front. And now this money is coming down because of a local composite index reduction and additional money from the General Assembly and the governor. And we're just basically saying, please let us have it. Let us go ahead and take care of our issues. Let us take care of our staff. Let's go ahead and get this behind us so as the economy does strengthen and grow, we will be able to continue to move forward and compete with our neighbors to the north and south when salaries do get going. And I know that they're considering doing it. To the north of us, they're talking of going 6%.
Let me ask you a question. The composite index is based on what? A county's ability to pay, is that correct? Isn't that what it is? So when you get more money from the composite, from the state because of the composite index, then that, to me, in the past has indicated that the locality is in a lesser position to pay. So that's why you're getting more money from the state.
Right. It's based off of a lot of indexes.
Right, but I mean, that is the premise of the composite index.
Correct. But our composite index isn't one of the lowest in the state either. And we're also funding our school division with local effort way below the average.
Dr. Kelo, can I ask you one quick question? You just said the $11 million from the locality was not being used in your VRS 5%, right?
Correct. The 11.5 is not.
The 11.5 local money is not being used. So you got an extra $1 million from the state?
Remember when you asked about the additional, and it was good because you were up on front of something, Mr. Thomas, that the General Assembly and the committee, they came out with the additional $488,000. We were at 1.3 additional from the state. Part of that coming from composite index reduction, part of it coming from VRS money that the governor was giving to us, and then the additional $488,000 came out of committee. with that money, we're still going to have to do some squeezing and tightening of our belt. We're not able to fund that full 6% with the money we're getting. We're going to have to try to cut and squeeze a little bit more. I don't remember the exact figure we're off, but we're close enough that we're going to have to just tighten a little bit.
So you're saying, yes, you did get $1 million more from the state?
About 1.7, yes, sir.
You got 1.7 million more from the state.
And they were making up, Mr. Thomas, if we go back through the history, they at one point had cut us over $2 million.
Oh, I remember that. Mr. Seeley and I both went to Richmond to the Department of Education to ask for that money back.
And I remember you
doing it. Took a couple of years to get it, but
yes, sir.
You got 1.7 million more dollars from the state this year.
Right.
Can you tell us how much of the 1.3 that you did get in the beginning, how much of that was because of the reduction in the composite index?
Mr. Akers, if I can speak in general numbers, not to...
No, I'd rather for you to maybe to have that information available for us when we do meet with the school board,
okay,
if you would. And,
okay.
I think that may be one of the problems we've had, is the fact that we've talked in general numbers too many times. So let's wait and talk in specifics. I think we'll all be served better.
All right.
Okay?
Fair enough.
All right, thank you. So, Mrs. Carlson, if you can maybe at your next board meeting, try to set a date within the next week.
Our board meeting is the 14th. This is one of those odd months where you guys meet before us.
Okay.
And we'll meet the 14th. If we need to, we can try to do a meeting, and I'd have to talk to our chair.
That would be good if we could do that.
And board members, if we can do something before the 14th, you know, because we're going to do an update on the budget with them on the 14th.
That would be good if we could do that, because again, we would like to probably on the 22nd come to some type of final resolution on the cuts and move forward with this budget and get it in place.
Thank you, sir.
So if we could.
Dr. Keelan?
Yes, sir.
Well, I should probably ask Mrs. Carson, and I'll ask her offline, but this is going to be the question. If the Board of Supervisors identifies extra money, or there is no such thing as extra money, but if the Board of Supervisors identifies some funding, would it be allowed to have that funding go directly to teachers and support staff? Yes. In other words, could we say, here's X number of dollars that goes to teachers and support staff? Because I tried to do that last year.
I think that would be what
it didn't work.
We have, you know, again, I think those suggestions and putting it forth in what Mr. Akers is proposing, sitting in a meeting as a discussion, if it's extra money and you want it to go into a specific...
Well, there's no such thing as extra money, but if we can discuss us specifically funding a line item in the school board budget, I think that would be a great thing.
Are you talking about, Mr. Thomas, of the existing 1.7, or are you talking about something above the 1.7?
Well, we're talking about the total budget in general. So that's...
Because we have everybody that we have to do the 5% to.
Well, maybe we could just discuss that, and I'll try to reach out to Ms. Carson again, see if we can talk about that during our meeting. Okay. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Any other comments?
Only comment I would make, if I could, Mr. Chairman, is that, and it certainly is good to see so many people out tonight, because you really need to understand the process. I can assure everybody out there that there is no suggested cut made because this board feels that you don't deserve a raise, or that the school system does not deserve it, or that there is some problem with the school system. As well as whether we're talking about law enforcement or emergency services or whatever department. When we choose to make cuts, or when we have to make cuts, it becomes an option simply because the funding is just not there. But certainly the exchange that has gone on tonight with the superintendent and the board, hopefully we can take this information that we were not necessarily aware of. If there's $1.7 million out there that this board was not aware of, then certainly we can sit down together and we can make some changes, and we can do some things, and we can support you, but you can also see that we're trying to support you as well. So it's not a thing where we feel like you haven't done a good job. or a cut is proposed because you don't deserve more. It's just the pie is only so big. And we do the best we can to try to divvy it out among all the citizens of the county.
Sheriff Lippo, the $150,000 recommended cut, what percent of your budget is that? What's your budget for the year?
Ask me that question again.
I wanted to know what percent of your budget is recommended cut.
When we were looking at our budget, controllable cost,
Right.
uncontrollable costs, right?
Yeah, let's talk about it. Yeah.
We only have 114,000 of controllable costs. In other words, our salaries, and that's where the whole big discussion started 3 weeks ago or a month ago, because we can't cut that much because we don't have that much, other than personnel. And that's where I think a lot of this went to. When we look at the monies that we've cut and what's been proposed by staff of what we can actually control, the only thing left for us is people. And that's where a lot of this started. We've cut, even for the percentages of 22% more that you're asking, that's from our operational budget. And we don't have that much in our operational budget. And Mr. Thomas mentioned about, the gas prices and fuel and stuff. Right now, we're operating on 190,000 as it is, so that's for us to patrol the county for over 1 million miles. So the cost and what we are for our budget, there's nothing that we can really cut other than what we're talking about here. And that's why I was so upset that the only thing that you can cut from us is our people. And that would be like saying, as I mentioned earlier on, dealing with the schools. I'm glad to see so many of them out here, just like what we had 2 weeks ago. And you're talking about the budget, you can't get rid of teachers. That's not going to help us. You can't get rid of personnel because that's not going to help us. And to answer, your question as far as our cuts, and again, I have Ted deal with it, what we've done is cut 22% more of our operational budget. We've given you all that we can cut.
Thanks, Sheriff. All right, the board will take a 10-minute recess. We'll reconvene the Board of Supervisors meeting. The next item on the agenda is going to be opening board comments. Does any board member have an opening comment? Mr. Black?
Mr. Chairman, thank you very much. I'd like to make a few comments. First of all, I'd like to thank Mr. Ron Curlings for the invitation to the Wounded Warrior event that happened a few Saturdays ago. It was an honor to be able to speak to them, and it truly was a great event for Caroline County. Second of all, I would like to thank all those people who came to my constituent meetings a few weeks ago. It was nice to see that members of the county are really into what's going on in the county. And the third thing is I think I need to address some issues. It has been mentioned a couple times. I'll be right up front. I voted against the tax increases. If I felt for a minute that the tax increases were going towards schools and stuff that is necessary in the county, I would have voted for it. But when we're voting spending $200,000 for a Dawn Phase 2 project for 30 homes, when we're spending $200,000 per year on a YMCA, I cannot and I will not vote for a tax increase that's supporting those. In addition, I personally introduced a bill or introduced something that would give us $600,000 per year that was approved by the board by prorating personal property. That will kick in next year, so the county will be getting $600,000 in additional revenue. Once again, if I felt that the taxes were going towards schools, which, by the way, are an investment. I've heard utilities are investment. I want everyone to make clear that schools are an investment. Thank you.
I've tried to be patient, and I can assure you, I'm not a bad person, But if another outbreak like that takes place, I'm going to ask the sheriff or the deputy or the captain to escort you from the auditorium. Absolutely will not tolerate that at all in board meetings. There's no need for that. You can be appreciative of what's being said and let him know later that you're appreciative of what he says. Okay? Mr. Taylor, you have any comments?
Yes, I do. I would like to take this opportunity to address a concern from the last meeting. I don't know if you had an opportunity to view the Caroline Progress this week, but there was a letter concerning the installation of tolls on Interstate 95, and I talked a little bit about that in our last meeting. As chairman of the George Washington Regional Commission, we learned that the Federal Highway Administration has granted what they call preliminary approval to charge motorists on Interstate 95 or to set up tolls. One of the reasons for doing this is to try to generate funds for transportation. I said something to the effect in the last meeting that I felt that the tolls would be good to address some of the transportation issues. They have also said that the tolls would probably be set up south of the 132-mile marker, which is in the lower part of Spotsylvania County. It didn't say it would be in Spotsylvania, but from that area down to the North Carolina line at some point in that area. And Caroline could very well be one of those places, or could be a place where those tolls were set up. I don't know that that will happen, but that's a possibility. What I wanted to point out, or what they did not point out in the article in the paper, was that the governor has asked for over $4 billion over the next 3 years to take care of transportation concerns. There is no easy way to generate funds, but everything costs. The use of tolls is one way to eliminate some of the problems, in this case on the interstate highway, the bridge repairs, other repairs on the highway. It has been stated that over $250 million could be generated through these tolls over the first 5 years, and an additional $50 million per year after that. And my point was that if this type of funding can be generated, and it can be used to take care of interstate concerns, bridges, roads, and so forth, then other monies that's generated through the Transportation Department can be used for secondary and primary concerns throughout Caroline County. So it's obvious that there are needs, and there are ways that we have to attract those needs or address those needs. And whereas I'm not a proponent of tolls, but if that's a way that we can generate some revenue to take care of some of the issues that we face, I would rather see us do that than to do some type of an additional tax. What that does also is allow people passing through and using the interstate to help bear some of the costs of keeping the interstate up to par and making it safe and usable. So having said that, I would just end by saying that, again, there's no easy way to generate revenue. Everything costs. I always say, we get what we pay for. If we do not generate funds to do the kinds of things that make our quality of life what it should be, then our quality of life suffers. So whether we're talking tax increases or tolls or fees or whatever, there is no fun way to generate revenue. But I can tell you, because you don't generate revenue does not mean you solve the problem. The problem is not going away. And we have to find a way to effectively do it. The citizens deserve that, and that's our job, and that's what I try to do. Thank you.
Mr. Underwood?
I guess I want to start off by talking to the teachers and the members of the school system. I don't think there is enough money to pay teachers for what they do. Paraprofessionals work basically from the time they get to work until the time they leave with a very short break. Overcrowded crowded classrooms. You're responsible for the future not only of Caroline County, but the future of this nation, because many of our students will go on to do great things. Both of my sons graduated, went all the way through school in Carolina, and are doing well. And that's thank you to the teachers in the county. We are not saying, at least I'm not, that you are not due all that we can, and I applaud you for fighting for every nickel, dime that is available. But I want you to understand that, and I say available, because with that comes other responsibilities to the sheriff's office, to the other county employees in the county. And we're trying to do a balancing act, not on the backs of the schools, but as part of the funds that are generated in the school system. So I'm not opposed to doing all we can to make sure that your salaries continue to grow, your quality of life continues to grow, our schools look better, are better for our children. Not opposed. But please remember, we're just working within a budget. As far as the Dawn wastewater treatment is concerned, for me, that's a quality of life issue. And I've seen millions of dollars spent on other projects in other parts of the county. If those folks had a choice as to being elsewhere than in the location that they're in, I'm sure they would move. But they don't have a choice. It's not their fault that the land doesn't perk, therefore they don't have a sewer system. That's a basic quality of life in the 21st century. And I will stand here and fight until the day that I leave this board for this system. Is it as cost effective as it can be? Yes, it will do better once we put more people on the system. But at this point, phase 2 will help the same children in this county who live in those 30 homes. Our senior citizens who live in those 30 homes who are on a fixed income. I didn't want to raise taxes, but I knew I could afford absolutely to give you nothing, zero, without a tax increase. I sit here and said no tax increase from the time of elections until the day that I voted for the tax increase, because the constituents said if we need a tax increase, we'll bite the bullet. You know, senior citizens said, well, that's $100 a year to me. It's a lot to those people who are not generating additional revenue in their households. So just remember that it's not a school fight or a sheriff's office fight or fire and rescue. It's about how many dollars are generated in the county. As I said before, we all pay state, federal, local taxes. We are the funders of our school system. Not just local. We are the funders of our school system. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Mr. Seeley?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I also want to reiterate one of Jeff Black's points, is that the schools are an investment that we have to make as a Board of Supervisors. And I do wholeheartedly agree with this school system is an investment. I want to also correct a mistake that some people in the audience had, that the sheriff's budget was cut $150,000, and I don't want Sheriff Lippa to get beat up in the paper later saying somebody said that there was a $150,000 cut to his budget. He has taken a cut. You heard him talk about it. I don't know how some people heard $150,000, but it's not $150,000. So, Sheriff, I just want to make sure that you don't get the brash of phone calls or negativeness that comes from what some folks may have potentially heard. And I too want to talk about the tax increase. I didn't vote for it. And it's not just personal. It's not just property tax. It's personal property as well. I've run into a number of folks that didn't realize how much personal property tax went up. 38%. Most folks don't realize what that's going to be until they see their bill, because 38% is just that, a number that doesn't really have a lot of meaning until you see it on paper and how it affects you. And again, I didn't see us moving forward. I see us paying past bills that we have not been able to keep pace with. So I too didn't vote for the tax increase. But I just want everybody to be aware that the tax increases are not just real estate, it's also personal property. Thank you.
Mr. Thomas?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. My real comment when I came this morning was about something, this afternoon was about something totally different. I'll get to that in a second then. I think since we're surrounded by teachers, I feel really good. And I've said this before, my sister was a teacher for 38 years. She retired a couple years ago. I expect her to be off in the Bahamas somewhere. And she's a substitute teacher now. So I understand the commitment that you have. And I believe anybody that's been a teacher for a while and come to these meetings knows that I have a history and a track record of trying to support the teachers in the schools. So that being said, there's another thing that nobody mentioned today, but next year we will be paying $3.3 million in debt service for buildings and investments that we made in the schools. So we are making those investments. We're going to keep trying to make those investments. We are working with a limited amount of money. And what I came to say, normally for board comments, is I have approached Mr. Ron Curlings from the VFW, I think Mr. Black mentioned him, and the Wounded Warrior program. Caroline's Promise is having a golf tournament on June 2nd, and they'll be at Mattaponi Springs. And I've promised Mr. Curling that I would sponsor a foursome of wounded warriors. Now, these are the people that have gone to Iraq, Afghanistan, and they've been injured, lost legs, lost arms. I saw a guy with no legs actually play golf, and it was kind of a humbling experience for me. So I'm going to support them, and I'm hoping that you folks in the audience would support them. We're not going to use any county funds, but I'm going to twist the arms of the rest of the supervisors to see if we can get maybe 2 teams. But we're going to try to do one, so it's June 2nd, and I'll be asking you personally. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Thomas. All right, under public hearings, and we're going to have public comments next for the audience. I see the auditorium pretty well full, and I'm sure that most of the people here are in support of the schools. I understand that there was flyers that went home to students, and as well as telephone calls made. So I have to assume that most of the people in the audience this evening is certainly in support of the schools. I don't know how many of you had planned to speak during public comment period. I see Mrs. Anderson, which is a school board member, and certainly will allow the school board members to speak if they so choose. But I'm going to ask that anyone else that had planned to speak, that if Mrs. Anderson is the representative for the school board and speaking on the school board's behalf, she may ask if you support the schools, and if you will, please stand up. We have 5 public hearings tonight that we have to go through. It's 8 o'clock. So if we allow everyone that's here to speak, we'll be here until the morning hours. So if you would, we're going to open the public comment period. And I'm going to allow Ms. Anderson to come, and if there are any other school board members that wish to come and speak, please do so. We will now open the public comment period. Mrs. Anderson, it's good to see you, Doctor.
I wanted to correct something that sounded like there was a misunderstanding in the earlier discussion. It sounded to me like we were saying that the schools got $1.7 million more from the state. That's not true. The $1.7 million is the total amount that the school gets from the state, and it's 400 some odd extra this year. It's not $1.7 million. And I do want to say that we understand that we are part of the county, and everybody has to make things work for the county. When there's not money, you can't spend it. But I would point out a couple of things. In fact, I kind of have a question. Public safety and education are the 2 big chunks of county money. They get more than anybody else. And I was looking back over the past 3 years. In each of the past 3 years, public safety's amount has gone up each year. over the past 3 years, looking at education's funding, it's gone down over the past 3 years. And I understand that there's need for cuts, but I do think they should be more equitably applied, and it should not be the biggest chunk out of the schools. So that's what I would ask you all to think about. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Anderson. Is there any other school board member that would come and like to address the board? I don't know. But I'm not going to.
I'm Becky Elam from Carolina High School. I represent what we call the non-Taj Mahal. If you walk through our school, you see a wonderful staff. As you see in all the other schools in our division, you see great kids. They deserve better. Our teachers deserve better. Whenever we're asked to be quiet and let one person speak, folks, you turn it on to us. We're going to stand up for our kids, always, 100%, always for our kids. Take it however you want to, Mr. Akers, but we're going to support our schools.
The public comment period is declared closed. I asked very nicely that you not applaud and you not yell and not whistle. You disrespected me and you disrespected this board, and the public comment period is closed, and we'll move on to the next item on the agenda. Public hearings. Proposed changes to Fred transit bus schedule in Caroline County. Is the Fred representative available?
They had Caroline's promise.
Does not have to do with schools. Okay. All right. Does not have to do with schools. That will be, okay. That will be more discussion on schools. Caroline's promise, are they here? Thank you. Not put up this. There's no sense in it. There's no sense in it. I'm not going to do it. David disrespected.
Mr. Akers, I don't mean to be rude or out of line, but I would like to ask at this time if the teachers would please hold on just a moment. I know that we're upset because we can't speak on behalf of the school system, but this is not about line items. These are about our children. And Caroline's promise represents our children. And I think that we will be out of order to walk out at this moment. I'm sorry, I don't mean to be out of line, but this is not the moment that we walk out on our children. Please do not start my time as of yet.
Go ahead.
Are you okay?
You're representing a group?
Good evening, board members. I'm my own speaker. My name is Jawanda Rollins, and I'm a member from the Reedy Church Voting District. I am a member of the Caroline's Promise Board of Directors. I prepared some comments, but after listening to the previous discussion and observing what happened, I will scratch what I had to say and I will speak from my heart. This afternoon, I wear a shirt that states, "I am the one," and I would like to offer perspective and not line item discussions on tongue-twisting numbers. I was a member of the Head Start program here in the county when we took a chance of allowing 4-year-olds to start versus the traditional 5-year-olds. And the perspective that I'd like to offer there is that we made a way where none existed. We created and we were willing to take a chance because we could not lose with education. I was the first battalion commander, the first female battalion commander, and the first state officer in 20 years in Caroline County. Perspective I'd like to offer on behalf of Caroline's Promise and our children is that trailblazing is encouraged and instilled. As a matter of fact, Ms. Faith Prescott used these very board meetings as our training ground for parliamentary authority, where we saw Robert's rules in action. At Hampton University, I attended there on scholarships provided by community members and organizations like Caroline's Promise. That showed me, and the perspective I'd like to offer is sacrifice and personal contributions of all of us encourage, and support all of us. As a national board teacher, I earned that on the backs of students here in Caroline County and capable teachers. In my era, Caroline County has been great, and we have done great things together. Which brings me to Caroline's Promise. It is a local branch of Colin Powell's America's Promise, and the 5 principles cultivate the youth today. We just celebrated our 10th anniversary, and tonight I'm not here to ask you to cut a already slim pie or creating money, extra money, that does not exist. Instead, what I am asking is that we reallocate the money spent on Big Brothers and Big Sisters and put it in Caroline's Promise, where our children can benefit, not children outside of our county. No offense to them. Thank you. Our Promise has served over 2,400 youth and provided over 400 volunteer opportunities. We partner with the school systems to pick up some of the slack. We partner with churches and other businesses. I'm the founder of Divas with Promise that is supported by Caroline's Promise. We have a 100% graduation rate. We have a 100% college matriculation rate. We have a 0% pregnancy rate. Our mission is to encourage, empower, and expose them to opportunities they would not otherwise have. We are asking you to continue to support Caroline's Promise because it doesn't matter what line item you put it in. We are the ones. I am the one, homegrown, returned, investing. And of course, I support all the things that have been said earlier. That is why I'm here. Thank you for your time. And now you will hear from the students.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Danielle Lewis. I am a student at Caroline High School. I am a junior and I am 17 years old. I am also a cadet in junior ROTC. My rank is a master sergeant, and I am also enrolled in Divas with Promise. Divas with Promise. Divas stands for Devoted Individual Valuing Another and Self. I've been in this program for 4 years now. This program has taught me a lot of things about myself that I never knew. I've experienced so much. And if it hadn't been for Miss Rollins and Miss Rollins, I probably wouldn't be here as of right now. What I'm doing right now, 4 years ago, I probably wouldn't have done it. Too nervous, too scared. But because of this program, I found myself. I found myself. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Joy Hill. I'm from the Mattapanai voting district.
I'm Kayla Waddy. I'm from the Reedy district.
We're going to tell you the promises.
1. Caring adults in every child's life. Develop relationships with parents, tutors, mentors, coaches, and other adults with an interest in child's well-being.
2. A safe place after school. Create locations with structured activities during non-school hours.
3. A healthy start. Provide good nutrition, protective ammunition, and sound dental care and hygiene.
4. Marketable skills. Offer effective education and practical experiences for career development.
5. Opportunities to give back. Encourage the community service so that the cycle continues.
Over 500 organizations and communities across the nation have pledged to fulfill these promises. Americans working together for a brighter future. This is our promise to the promise of America, her children, Alma Powell.
Good evening. My name is Jesse Rollins, Mattapanai Voting District, and hopefully you've had a teachable moment. Our children have given us our voice. Ms. Powell saw fit to come and visit little old Caroline County 10 years ago when we kicked off our Caroline's Promise. She also saw fit to come and visit us and celebrate, hey, you guys have been hanging in there for 10 years. 10 years. We stretch pennies until they holler. Tonight, I'm here to support the young people that take the time, the parents that take the time to bring the children to our Divas with Promise and our Caroline Promise activities. I, for one, as a citizen in the community, I operate the 4-H Sewing Club. I do what I can with the talent and the skill that I have in doing something that I volunteer with to help the children meet those 5 promises when they are in my care. Recently, I found out that a young lady that was a part of my 4-H Sewing Club has moved to another state, and she's now graduated, and she's working in fashion design with a business. So when I see her on the runway in one of these shows on TV, I can say she got her start in Caroline County. What I'm asking tonight is let's not continue to help the bottom line of another organization by hurting the bottom line of Caroline County's award-winning Caroline's Promise program. The All-American City emblem that we have earned, we earn based on what we do for the citizens of Caroline County, and part of that is what we do with our youth. Big Brothers and Big Sisters is a wonderful program, but how many kids are served in Caroline County by Big Brothers and Big Sisters? Please put that money into Caroline's Promise so that we can continue to help our children of Caroline County pull their little red wagons. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Rollins. Thank you.
Is the board allowing any other comments not related to education or schools?
One additional comment. Go ahead, Mr. Watson.
I'd like to point out that the board improperly denied Sheriff's Office personnel the opportunity to speak at the last board meeting. The vice chair at the time said that they were not allowed to speak because they were speaking as a group and that only one person would be allowed to speak to represent the group for 5 minutes. However, under the board rules as they were adopted in the January meeting, there is nothing about a group speaker related to the public comment section. The group speaker rule only applies to public hearings. As such, I think it was wrong for the board to deny the personnel. I think only 2 or 3 personnel were allowed to speak at the last meeting. And I think that was inappropriate, and I think the board should apologize for that. In addition, the board previously has been highly selective about the enforcement of these rules related to public comments. In one meeting in December, they allowed one speaker to go on for 13 minutes, more than 13 minutes. But they seem to have decided, and I think it's wrong to selectively interpret those rules and selectively apply those rules when it comes to speakers that they might not agree with. And a lot of the rules are related to not just the chair, but the board has the final say. Not the chairperson, not the vice chairman, or whoever is running the meeting, but the board itself has the obligation to apply those rules. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Watson. Mrs. Ann, would you like to address the public comment period and what the board must and or has to do, or the fact that that is just something the board allows?
There's no requirement under state law that the board allow a public comment period whatsoever. It's in the bylaws, but if the board consents, then the bylaws can be modified. And so if the board consented at the time to requesting or requiring that one speaker in lieu of the entire community, everybody in the audience, speak on an issue, then the board can certainly do that by consent.
Can I ask a question, Mr. Chairman? So that means that if there is a need to dispose of public comment, then there should be a vote. Is that correct? A motion and a vote? Is that what you're saying?
Well, the bylaws state that the public comment rules can be waived or amended with the consent of the board. How a board shows its consent can be done in a number of different ways. Obviously, an affirmative vote is the clearest way to show consent, but acknowledging if not objecting, giving implied consent is also, a way to show consent. It may not be. The bylaws don't expressly state which way consent has to be given, and again, because it's not required by the Code of Virginia, there's no legal issue. It's just, what's the formality. Yes, thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Other questions? Okay. All right.